Hiya, ha la 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 lo. Oh no, I gotta move this chair. I don't know. Something like that. Now I can move around freely. Good morning and welcome everybody to the Great Hashrate Migration Test 1. We're going to talk about a little bit today and basically determine, if there were any changes. Initially, obviously, when we were looking at the hash rate changes to the network, didn't seem like a ton of change. Obviously about 20 terahash when we initially looked. We're going to look more today. We're going to discuss some of the changes that happened to other networks. We're going to look at what people are mining, and then we're going to come up with a game plan for testing individual coins. And we are also going to be having Serpent XSF. There we go. Hop in to discuss, basically how he views it. We're going to talk with you guys in chat, and then we'll go from there. So let's do it. I am getting reports that apparently the audio is desynced. Is that what's going on? How he views it. I don't see that. Thanks for making me unmute to double check. All right. So before we get into it, this is not a sponsor spot, just to be clear, but somebody made a t-shirt. You can buy it on Amazon, and I linked it down below, and I thought it was cool. It says, I was part of the Great Hashrate Migration 2022. The community's doing cool stuff. I support that. Technically, it's an affiliate link, I think, down in the description. I'm not associated with the shirts, but I saw it. It was tweeted at me. I thought it was neat, and I'll probably order one. So whoever is making them, make sure you actually ship them. You know what I mean? But it is through Amazon, so I think that we'll be fine. I think we'll be fine as far as that works. So let's get into it. We have essentially what I was working on, or what I ended up doing, was mining Ergo. So how did that play out for us? Well, I was mining Ergo on GetBlock. The reason I'm on GetBlock is because they're the only ones that ever offered the opportunity for miners to individually vote on changes to a coin. Specifically, this was Ergo, and it was a part of their re-emissions contract. We've covered that on the channel before. I thought it was cool that the pool allowed for individual miners to do that. So I figured, while I was already going to be moving stuff off of Ethereum and my traditional plan, I would go ahead and mine to this pool. That being said, we did not do that well on this pool. Now, we did about 29 Ergo, which is significantly lower than what to mine would give us for the 13 gigahash that we had online for this one in particular. And that only rounds out to, I want to say, $60, $63 in US dollars. And that's before getting it out, paying fees for something like KuCoin, etc. So I wouldn't say that I was necessarily successful in managing this as much as I had initially anticipated for Ergo. If we went to, for example, over here and calculated that out, the estimated reward should have been for 24 hours 43. And as you can see, due to a smaller pool, etc., and people moving, which we are going to talk about as well, because this is a big deal too, we ended up with 29 ERG. So that's pretty much how my mining profitability, I suppose, went. And yes, I moved the entire farm over to there. Now, the next question that a lot of people were asking, and we have a poll here. We had a poll from yesterday of what people were going to be mining. The winner was Flux in that pool at like 36%, with Ergo coming in second at 35%. However, there was another poll that was run by Crux Pool, and in their poll, they had Ethereum Classic at 8.8%, Ergo at 69%, almost 70%, Ravencoin at 4%, and Flux at 17.6%. Now, of course, a lot of what we're trying to determine is where the hash rate actually moved to, right? From what we influence and so on as far as that goes. And that was a little bit more difficult to figure out. So one thing that's happening is we have a 7-day history and we show or reported from the pools of 1.11 petahash, but the actual network hash rate tells a little bit of a different story. And we can see that repeated on essentially 2miners.com. So if we went over here, when we started yesterday, we were at 1.13 petahash a second, and there's this dip down to here. Now, typically on nights, like if you zoom out, right, typically on nights, it's not uncommon for basically overnight for the hash rate to dip down, right? You can kind of see it repeated pretty often, right? But this was the last one. Now, we could say that this is completely insignificant because we've had basically repeated hash rate fluctuations during like basically essentially the same type of patterns, right? Not always. It's not every night, right? Like May 7th, and then it kind of dipped down to May 8th, and then dipped down to May 9th, and then comes back up a little bit. That being said, this was a pretty big dip, and it comes on the tail of, which is interesting, the light hash rate 100% unlock. So there was definitely a network effect. We're down from yesterday at 1.13 petahash a second to 963 terahash a second. To put that into perspective, I suppose, would be, what is that? 140, 0.3. I need to work on that. 170 terahash a second that came off the network. Now, I'm not saying that's all us, of course. Like I said, I acknowledge the fluctuations in the hash rate, right? If we look at it as of a day, 1.13 to 963. Now, you would have already, though, at this point, expected an uptick, right? So on May 13th, you see it kind of going up, and then boom, cut off. But typically, like you'll see it go down and then back up, right? Within the same evening, usually. So there is some effect that has been influenced there. So what is that looking like on other networks, though? And this is where it gets a little bit difficult to figure out, right? So if we looked at the day, it looks like a lot of people initially did go ahead and move over to Ergo per everybody's kind of votes and so on, but then it kind of went back down, right? So we went from 15 terahash a second to almost 18 terahash a second, and now we're back down to 15 terahash a second. Now maybe people are already migrating back off, and it's hard to tell, but that doesn't appear to be where a lot of the hash rate has gone. And so then we look at Flux, which was basically the second most voted, and it did go up to 2.15 mega solutions a second, which I think is the highest Flux has been since what? May, well, actually even before that, right? May 10th. So it did peak up there and then it crashed back down. So we don't see it on Flux either. And then on Ravencoin, we don't see it on Ravencoin, right? Maybe a little bit of a pump up to 3 terahash on the initial, and then boom, all the way back down to 2.48. So I'm not necessarily seeing a network effect on any particular coin. Definitely not Ethereum Classic. I don't know if I had that pulled up, but we can pull it up, right? For the network hash rate. We really didn't see a huge pump in hash rate there, maybe from 22 terahash to now about 24 terahash, but that doesn't account for 170 terahash at all. So what I'm getting at, what I see, right, in particular, is that I don't think that there has been enough of an effect. And even though we did move hash rate off, I don't know if we had enough time for everybody to get everything stable on a particular coin. There were also stability issues that were going on with Hive OS that caused a lot of people to be delayed in getting their configurations up. So from my perspective, I'm not seeing a ton of data that's going to help us move outside of polls, which can be a little bit difficult, because then if we decide that we want to keep moving forward and we want to put the community together to go ahead and maybe in 2 weeks move everybody to Ergo for the weekend, which is what I think we want to do. And we'll talk, I'll bring Serpent here in just a second and get his thoughts on it, see if he's seeing something that I'm not seeing. We'll also talk to chat and kind of go from there. These are not pool rates, by the way, that I'm showing you guys. These are network hash rates. Like, that's pretty much it, right? So we could look over here though, and it's not like you see too much different. You can see the initial spikes, right? So here you can see the spike up to 16 terahash. If we went to Flux, you can see, well, you can't see it right now because the chart got messed up from whatever this was, which I was looking into yesterday, but I didn't find it. Aeon, I think you can see it because you saw Red Pandas come online. No, you can't see it on Aeon. Where else was this? Oh, Ryo and Cero probably would be some that I missed. Ryo, there was a spike and then just right back dipped down. And then Cero, which I know Super Zero, a lot of people tried to move to. So you can see here that there was a pump up in Cero from like 57 gigahash to like 71 gigahash. So, but on the 7-day history, it had hit that before. People had been already trying to test this out for profitability. Looks like the same people tried to use this as an opportunity to test that out more. So we'll do a poll at the end of this. Here's one of the things moving forward that I think we do work on, and that's going to be working on Hive OS scheduling to where all of us just basically schedule the same time if we're going to be moving to a separate coin. The caveats that we're going to run into obviously are, you know, cards and rigs that don't run good on specific algorithms. I think the big ones obviously are going to be like Flux, where, you know, moving your Polaris GPUs there isn't going to be great. But we don't necessarily have to move everything, I suppose. And like I said, I want to get more of the community's information on it. So I am going to bring Serpent. I'm going to unmute here, bring Serpent in and chat with him, Vega, and then get his thoughts and see if he's seeing something I'm not. I'm definitely, you know, not an expert, and I definitely need other people to help go through the data. So, hey, Serpent, are you here? Let's see. Well, he's still muted and deafened, so we'll give him just a little bit to pop in, and I'll look at the chat. We had a 99 super chat from Bits Be Trippin'. So thanks, Bits. Let me get that in. He says, have a good weekend, my dude. Lunch on us. Awesome. Make sure you guys go subscribe to Bits Be Trippin', the mining OG. My friends. BBT in the house.
Did you see that? He dropped the 99.99 on you.
I did. I just was acknowledging it and saying thanks. So that was pretty cool. So, Serpent, like I was saying, I don't know if you've been watching the stream or listening at all. Part of what I'm seeing is not too much of any sort of discernible data, right? So, because we see, of course, Ethereum typically go through similar network hash rate changes in the past, right? There's not anything significant there as far as hash rate moving off. And then if I'm looking at hash rate moving on to other networks, it doesn't quite account for like the 160 terahash that went down or came off of Ethereum overnight, right? So, what are you seeing? Am I missing some stuff that maybe you see that you can analyze for us or anything like that?
Um, so it's kind of a mixed bag. I'm not seeing anything significant. Obviously, the net hash and the difficulty on Ethereum did go down, but where did it go? We got a poll that we talked about yesterday, but I'm not seeing much in the Flux arena. I know a lot of people were talking about Ergo. So as far as looking at the hash rate, the difficulty in the various networks, um, honestly, I think we need longer than 24 hours. So I would agree with what you mentioned yesterday to me was we need, plan another time to do this so we could get, some more long-term data. We got to do it longer than 24 hours to really see how things pan out. But yeah, Flux, I mean, there was a dip down. It's almost like people got off of Flux, but it also could be, uh, you know, the net hash for Ethereum that I was seeing yesterday was that people on Nice Hash Marketplace, while we were doing this, were buying hash power,
Right.
spiking it, and then it would drop again, and then the next order would kick in, spiking it. And so I think there's some kind of not manipulation, but I think there's some kind of people at the same time we're planning this as miners. People were planning to jump into Ethereum knowing that the miners would go off. But we didn't really. We went from what 1.13 petahash to 900. The low was 947 terahash. So we did. I mean, that's pretty good. But there's a lot of ASICs on Ethereum. There's a lot of ASICs on the overall ecosystem, and I think Bitsby Trippin and I were talking about this, or even we all were talking about this in past, whether it was EIP 1559 meetings or whatever, is that how much of the network hash rate is actually ASICs. And it looks like it might be more than what we projected. I think we were thinking like what, 60 ASICs, 40 GPU miners. And I'm thinking more now like 75% ASICs and 25% GPU miners. Because most of the GPU miners prior to this have already moved to other cryptocurrency assets. A lot of people are already mining Flux, Ergo, Raven Coin, Ethereum Classic, because again, it's the easiest to switch to, but no discernible data we could pull from this short time scale. We need something on a longer time scale.
Yeah, and I think in 2 weeks, and if everybody's good with it, we plan to move to a single network and do like basically a 72-hour kind of test. Maybe start on like Friday at 9:45 a.m. We work on helping people schedule out those swaps, and then end on end on Sunday. That way, everybody has the weekend to make sure that their rigs are ready to go for the week. The problem there, obviously, that is going to hurt revenue for a lot of people on that point. But in 2 weeks too, where does the difficulty sit on Ethereum? Does it become a moot point, right? Do the ASICs just basically run the network? None of the GPUs can compete, because at that point we start having realized effects on network difficulty from the bomb.
I mean, that's definitely a variable in the grand scheme of things, because depending upon the difficulty, that's going to throw a wrench in our plans. And don't we have another meeting in 2 weeks?
Yeah, we'll have. Well, that I know. So on the 8th of June, Ropsten merge will be taking place, which I covered yesterday in a video. If you guys need to go figure that out, and then I think they have another dev meeting directly after that, specifically to basically, I guess, determine the success of Ropsten. But my understanding too is Ropsten, this merge is going to be, they're going to deprecate that test net right after they test the merge. So, okay. Basically the way Tim made it sound on Twitter was essentially they didn't give a crap about that test net, so that's why they're doing the merge test on that first, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah,
there's no nothing really important quote unquote on Ropsten that they care about. So they're going to move that off and not worry about it.
Nothing really important to them, but yeah,
right.
It's not going to be a detriment to the overall ecosystem. But I mean, so if we time this out in 2 weeks, and what was the time scale you were talking about? Like we start Monday and end Sunday?
Start Friday and end Sunday.
Start Friday, and so it's over. So it's 4-day time scales. What you're talking about?
72 hours, right? Something like that.
Okay.
So that would give even the slowest network, Ergo, for difficulty changes time to adjust difficulty, right? Which, from what I looked at, that's kind of what we would be wanting to. That's what we would want, is whatever the slowest one is. Right. Give it time to respond for difficulty, because right now, like if you look at the difficulty chart for Ergo, it's at the lowest, because everybody dipped off on like May 12th for a while, and so the difficulty dipped off, and it'll stay low for another probably like 48 hours or so, and then it'll go back up, right? So
have you looked at the other hash rates for the various cryptocurrencies?
Yeah, so I was just looking at that at the beginning of the show, right? And the problem is that from my perspective, I didn't see, I think Ergo's back under 1.6 mega solutions a second. It's at 1.57 right now, according to the chart on 2Miners, which seems to be the one that updates the fastest, right?
Yeah.
I think it hit a peak of 2.06 mega solutions a second yesterday when we first started. And then it went back down and then came back up. Part of that, I think is, and hopefully this is what miners are getting out of this too, or the community is getting out of it, is I think that, at least this has been my experience with Flux, is it's a lot more difficult to tune Flux in and maintain your hash rate on Flux. And especially if you're in an area that gets hot, you can have, that's what it looks like happened here. Like midday when it got hot, it looks like some people had issues and it dropped back down, and then it went back up for the evening to 2 mega solutions and then came back down again. And then some people might have just hopped off all the way too, right?
Not only that, but what was inconvenient was Hive was having issues that morning.
Right.
So when everybody was trying to switch their rigs, they were having issues. I'm not sure what the back end Hive team was doing. If Hive is watching Son of a Tech or my streams, if you guys can comment on that on Twitter or whatever, that'd be great. I'm not sure if they already posted something, but that made it harder for some miners, right? Like I actually had to switch my first NVIDIA mix rig to Windows to mine Flux.
Right.
And it is hot here in Florida, so my Flux rig didn't crash, but it caused my AMD rig to crash. So yes, the peak heat during the day caused issues. And
Flux hash rate in general fluctuates more than other algorithms, as does Ravencoin, right? So from moment to moment, your Ravencoin and Flux hash rates are in flux. Pun intended. So they don't stay as steady, and that's because of the core, right? Like whenever you start moving algorithms to more core heavy stuff, or any applications in general, you're going to have higher fluctuations because those boosts are going to be coming into play and that sort of thing, right? GPU boost and whatever else. Now you could lock the core. I don't know how many people are locking core for Flux. I think most people do an adjusted a fluctuating overclock, right? Like a plus 100 megahertz, and then let GPU boost take it from there. So I don't know. I didn't see anything on Ravencoin. I didn't see anything on Flux necessarily, other than, like I said, that initial pump. We did see the most stable one that's still stable right now was Ethereum Classic. It went from 22 terahash a second up to like 24 terahash a second, and it maintained. Now, once again, I'm going to go back to what we learned there is just confirmed that I think, Ethereum Classic is more consistent. That algorithm, the ET hash, is more consistent. And it's easier to set the clocks for. So people that move to Ethereum Classic, you know, is a one-click go. And then the second most reliable was Ergo, right? Like Ergo seemed to stick around pretty steadily as well up until this morning, right? So when it popped, it went from 15.45 to 18, and it kind of maintained that 18 throughout the day and evening yesterday, and then this morning started going down. So I think Ergo's a little bit easier to read, as is Ethereum Classic. So I do think picking those two for the single coin moves in the 72-hour test would be the easiest ones to get data from, and the easiest ones to have people move over to without too much trouble on overclocks and so on. Not saying that I don't want to move to Flux and Ravencoin later. I just think maybe initial tests, and with everything as far as the merge timing and confusion, would be, I guess, a little bit easier. I am again worried about, the difficulty. I think, so here's one thing I think we do learn, right? We learn that there's a ton of ASICs on the network and a ton of institutional hash power. The only institutional hash power or large farm hash power that would be GPU that I'm aware of would be like Hut 8, right? So for the small miners, what do we have to worry about? Probably whatever Hut 8's plans are. But seeing that their PR group was like, we'll just mine something else like Polygon Matic on MSNBC, I have low faith in them being able to migrate somewhere. But I could be wrong, right? I would think more than likely we see something like Hut 8 just liquidate a lot of their hardware and try to move to ASICs or something.
So not that it's a big spike or anything, but I just decided to look randomly, right? So if we look at whattomine.com.
Okay.
The most it depends on your cards, right? So LHR is no longer relevant, but whattomine.com still has it in there. You got the 3060 Ti L and a 3060 Ti. So when we're looking at those cards, what I noticed is the second most profitable coin, if we take out Crypto Night _GPU algo, is Ergo. So I would agree that Ergo coin would be the one, if we wanted to do the 72-hour, that's the one I would like to switch to, me personally, but we'll wait for the community's opinions, I believe. But Equilibra, which fluctuates in the top 5 from time to time, and some of the other Crypto Night _GPU algo coins did get a little spike. It actually went from 1.8, 1.72 kilohash, which isn't much, spiked up to about 3 kilohash, and it is still staying around 2.3. So I'm not sure if some people, because we didn't say let's go to a coin. We said go to whatever coin you want. And so it could be that a lot of the GPU miners went to whattomine.com, saw, hey, Equilibra is the second most profitable at that time, and then switch. But yeah, you're 100% the data of what we got. I can't see anything on Flux. I can't see anything on Ravencoin. Whattomine data, did that even show anything over the past 24 hours? I don't think so.
Well, it showed the dip in Ethereum profitability. I mean, that's
Did a Nice Hash take it over last night?
Yeah, Nice Hash was pretty much slamming it. We hit all-time highs on Ethereum difficulty and Ethereum hash rate yesterday. I think we hit it 1.15 at one point petahash.
That's where the buying power on the marketplace comes in.
Yeah, on a spike, and then it dipped back down, and then, I mean, like it's relevant to note that like I did have like people in the comments being like, it obviously didn't have any impact because my profitability on Ethereum is down. Now, the thing they're missing out on there though too is that we're doing this because that's going to be happening right now. Like, it's a little funny because the fact of the matter is that regardless, we could get every single GPU miner, including Hut 8, to move off of Ethereum, and the profitability is going to keep going down on Ethereum.
Yeah. I mean, it's going down anyway, so I don't understand why they equate that to what we did.
Right. So, and that's because now we have artificial difficulty in play. That's what we have at play, right? We have artificial difficulty increase at play at this point. It's going to get worse, I think, in 2 weeks. And see, that's what I'm thinking too, is I think the migrations might not even be, I don't know, like they might not even be necessary, just because by nature, I think people are going to be jumping off. I think we're going to see
there's going to be a lot of migrating.
GPU miners are going to be jumping off. I think the good news, though, that we do learn is that here's what we do learn. We do learn that there's a ton of ASICs on Ethereum. And that means that for the GPU miners, that's good news, because we're going to have a ton more options, right? The option that looks the sketchiest, though, is going to be Ethereum Classic, I think, because this does look like a potential of like 750 to 900 terahash going from Ethereum to Ethereum Classic post merge.
Yeah, and that could be a potential problem for the Ethereum Classic team network ecosystem. I'm also concerned that the miners, when we did this 24-hour swing, you guys, and I'm not sure how many are watching, but you guys are putting a lot of your hash on a singular pool, and we don't want to be anywhere near 50% or above net hash on a singular pool.
I think it depends on the project itself. And I agree with you, but just to be fair, like Flux, for example, isn't going to have as much of an issue with that. Right, because you have some of that consensus mechanism being pushed through the nodes.
I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but then what happens when we have 700 something terahash switch over to Ethereum, swing over to Ethereum Classic, and that's all ASICs, and they're all on the same damn pool? Well, and we're gonna have the same problem we had before.
Well, yeah, I mean, Ethereum Classic's gonna have problems, I think, regardless at this point, is what we've determined, right? Like
with the influx, yes.
And it's gonna be. Look, here's the thing is, like, we know from EIP 1559, right? Like, here's one thing we know from that. We know that Innosilicon went on and came out in support of EIP 1559, and they specifically stated, they were going to mine on there and continue to produce ASICs for Ethereum until the very end, right? So we know that more than likely, the only people that will be hopping off of Ethereum are like individual miners, not large firms that are in the pockets of Innosilicon, right? So,
right.
That's good news, though, because then we know we don't have to worry about that as much. Do they decide to go to Ethereum Classic, though, or do they just turn down all the equipment and then what, right? Like, I'm really curious on what their plans are as far as that goes. Now, the people that aren't in the pocket of Innosilicon, right? Like, because we've always had that debate too with Bitcoin and their ASICs, and how much of it is Bitmain mining and how much of it is, Bitmain selling to other miners. So the same question goes for Innosilicon and their ASICs, right? Like, how much of that is from independent firms and how much of that hash rate is directly from Innosilicon? And then, are those firms going to try to continue, or are they just going to shut down the miners? Or will they try to hit Ethereum Classic for a little bit, right?
I think they're going to pivot.
You think they will pivot to...
I think they're going to pivot and continue to produce in the Ethereum Classic for Ethereum Classic. And then if their marketing team or whoever above them decides, hey, we're going to start creating devices or products for XYZ cryptocurrency, because realistically, until that merge happens and we see Ethereum is no longer mineable, right? We're going to have a lot of ASICs as we discovered probably move over to Ethereum Classic. But what is the next coin that the GPU miners are going to go to? Whatever that next coin is that most of the net hash and the GPU miners go to, and as it becomes like the top 5 most profitable, I think we're going to have a lot of reverse engineering or engineering to try to target that target audience, right? We're going to have new Jazz miners that mine certain coins, or new ASICs that mine certain coins. And then we'll have to see how the ecosystem overall plays out. But I think they will pivot.
Well, you're just saying they'll pivot on building new ASICs. You're talking about Silicon themselves, right?
Well, just the various manufacturers that are out there
For
that build
ASICs,
these
yeah.
devices, yes.
Or iPolo or whatever, right? But the question is, what do the actual farms that currently have those ASICs do?
Well, what's the easiest thing for them to go to? So besides Ethereum Classic, I mean, maybe they'll sell their hardware and then switch to something else. Because I can see a lot of these farms, honestly, and this is just my opinion, I can see a lot of these farms that have been mining Ethereum consistently for probably years, that have all of this Ethereum, all this capital, just sell their ASICs at cost or whatever, because the market is obviously down compared to when they bought the ASICs, or it might be up and they get to make double the profit on their hardware than when they originally bought it, and then becoming a validator, right? So now they start participating in the proof of stake ecosystem, and
Right.
That I could see some farms doing. But as far as what are they going to do with their ASICs, they're just going to, some are going to point to Ethereum Classic, some are going to liquidate and just go straight proof of stake. But I don't know if that answers your question. That's just pure speculation on our part now, because we don't really know what these farms are going to do unless we have direct contact. You got direct contact with any of these big farms?
No,
I don't.
I don't know. I mean, the only person we could ask would be Bits, I suppose. But I don't know that he has. I mean, I think he has contact with like specifically Bitcoin farms. I don't necessarily know about. We don't, and it makes me feel like Silicon is running most of these ASICs themselves. Because it's not like I've sat down. I haven't ever seen it. Like, there hasn't been anybody in the news that was like, we're starting a public IPO for an Ethereum ASICs mining farm. Like, that's not something that happened, right? Like, so I don't know where all that hash rate's coming from necessarily. But,
well, I mean, if you look at some of the cryptocurrencies, let's see something real quick. Isn't there an unknown? Isn't there like an unknown hash rate? Like, we have known hash rate and then we have unknown. So I wouldn't be surprised. You know, you manufacture these things, right? And you're at the plant. You probably have a subsection of that plant that is just sitting there with the connectivity you need to go ahead and, as soon as it comes off the line, hook it up and start mining, and to build that company more revenue by mining the new cryptocurrency or whatever cryptocurrency they just built that machine for. So InnoSilicon, and what isn't InnoSilicon the one that goes to the meetings with the Ethereum devs?
yeah, that's what I was saying. They were the ones that came out in support of EIP 1559, which basically, I mean, like, because I remember watching that, and when that was going down, being like, okay, well, if InnoSilicon's supporting them, there's no protest from the miners at this point. Like,
right.
you can't, there can't be a protest. Not that a protest from the miners would have mattered anyways, because it's not like they allow miners to vote on changes. So, but that being said, like, even a protest of like a mass exodus of like hash rate didn't matter. What I do think, though, is that a majority of the hash rate that's on ETH will continue to stay on ETH until the very end.
100%. They're not gonna move until it can be no longer mineable. The day it happens, and their machines are just sitting there idle, is the day they will shut it down.
But in like 4 weeks or a month, all the small GPU miners may be more profitable on other coins. So what I'm saying overall is I think this is a good sign, because it does mean we probably don't have to worry about a huge influx of hash rate that's going to hurt the smaller miners on other coins.
100%. And so I'm guessing you're extrapolating that from the test that we just did over the 24 hours, but you also want some more from the 72 hour time frame.
Right. Like,
yeah, we're good.
Let's say everybody hits one coin. I think that would be some extra data that we could get that would say, okay, you know, how much is that going to hurt it? How much more price discovery on each of these coins are we going to need to see, if any, right? Like, obviously we need to see some.
Right.
Like, if I was to stay on the pool for Ergo that I'm on with the current revenue, I'd be at break even essentially for my farm. So that's not going to work. But I have some, like, obviously I'm on a small pool that's not finding a lot of blocks. So there's that to be said, right? So, but the question is like, yeah, we need to do a longer form test. I think single coin's the way to go. I do hear other people just want to do in chat, we're saying just a long form test of let everybody move to wherever they want. What are your thoughts? Do you think like we do a 72-hour like long form test where everybody moves to wherever they want like they did this time? Or do you think we move to a single coin? And then obviously I'll get a poll going for this too.
I would say single coin, because we don't got that data. We have a lot of people that just seem to have spread out, but we also have a lot of people not participating, right? We had a lot of people in the Discord and various chats saying they're not going to participate. But, if we can get a majority of them, and Ergo is, again, the second most profitable coin, I guess depending on your GPUs, it could be, third or fourth. So if we choose a coin that is still pretty profitable for them, then they may want to switch versus, I don't know what is it going to take for them to move other than the door shutting and they can no longer mine Ethereum. But yeah, we should do a poll. I would say Ergo and a 72-hour test would be good data. I did the
72-hour test, single coin or multi first, and then I'll ask which coin. I think the first ones should be either. I think Ethereum Classic's out. I think all ETH hash coins are out. Right?
Yeah, because that's going to be heavily.
Like at this point, we can just go ahead and write those off, and just hope that they get the price discovery and from the ASICs. That's kind of like all that, because the hard yeah.
And then when all the ASICs switch over to that coin, Ethereum Classic,
if Ethereum Classic gets the proper price discovery and makes it, incredibly profitable, then GPU miners can move over there. But until we actually know what's going to happen with the ASICs, it seems like a moot point.
Right.
Well,
I mean, this proved a couple of things. We know there's a lot of ASICs on the net hash. We know there's I wouldn't call them, in no disrespect, I know you guys are probably going to bash me. There's a lot of lazy miners. They don't mine projects that support them. They just mine whatever's profitable so they can get their profit and get out, which is respectable. I understand that. I understand that completely. But it's always been a game for many years that GPU miners will jump on a new project, they mine as much as that project, and so an ASIC is built for that project, and then they will move on to the next project. And it's this constant wave of trying to stay ahead.
Well, it's always like if you go like full on spec mining, right? It usually goes CPU mining at first, and then it goes GPU mining, and then sometimes some FPGAs, and then it goes to ASICs, right?
Right.
That's kind of the natural progression of most of these, most coins, right? Bill B says, that's not a tech you're talking about, at least 5 terahash moving to a coin. What information are you looking for? Well, at that point, we're looking for difficulty increase and revenue decrease, right? Like, we're looking for essentially, that and network stability too, right? So right. The other thing that you have to take into account is like, this is also giving pool ops, like a lot of these pools for like the small coins, etc. They're not necessarily established pools, like other than 2 miners, right? Where, I mean, they're going to have Ergo or whatever, but other than like 2 miners who's like established or something along those lines, like a lot of these pools are new pools, kind of fresh, pool ops, and they could use the practice as well too. So what we're doing is just helping each individual coin out. Then we're gathering data as far as like what's feasible, because what will inevitably happen, right, is that everybody's going to go to what to mine. They're going to look for what's most profitable, right? and then they're going to decide to all move there, and everybody's going to move to the same coin because they're not like we typically don't have. You don't have outside of like really seasoned miners. You don't have people trying to experiment and play with anything outside of what to mine, right? To Vega's point, which is going to mean that inevitably, like if Ergo is the one that's number one at the top, we're also providing them a stress test, essentially.
Which they definitely need prior to, and this is one of the biggest points that I wanted to talk about is what would happen with the influx of miners on said coin. Can the network handle it? Obviously, for the 24-hour tests, the answer is yes. Hive obviously was having issues, but that's not the pool. So a 72-hour test and a huge influx in hash rate on Ergo would be some good data, not only for Ergo and their team and the pool operators, but also for us miners.
And then I know people are talking about Firo. That's the reason Firo would be relevant is because of its, I suppose, its profitability on Polaris. No, because isn't its profitability really bad because of the power consumption?
So on AMD cards, let me take a look. On certain AMD cards, it's up there. Yeah, so it's number 4. If you had a rig of 6600 XTs, it's number 4, making you about $3.32 a day, but only $1.74 in electric. So depending on the card, depending on your tuning, because remember, what to mine and all of these calculators are just rough estimations. It's up to you, the end user, the miner, to tune your GPUs and your configuration for your setup, your environment, where you're located. But yes, Firo is more profitable on AMD. It is in the top 10 for NVIDIA. And by the way, guys, I shameless plug. I do a series every month of what is the most profitable cryptocurrency to mine. But we look at the past data to help us draw conclusions on what we should be considering mining in the future. Ethereum is eventually going to get off of that, and then we're going to have these coins to go for. So if you haven't checked that out, I do that monthly on my channel, SerpentX Tech. But yes, to answer your point, Firo is profitable on AMD type GPUs.
But they're not as profitable on NVIDIA GPUs, so we have the same problem that we would have on Flux, just in reverse.
Right. Ergo on, say, the same rig, that Firo is only a few places higher. You're $2.68, $1.52 in electric. Now, again, I know, you're not making buku money. You're losing some profitability because you switched off of Ethereum. But this data would be very nice to see, or this will be very nice to see over the 72-hour time scale. So participation is not required, but it would be nice if you guys could do that. Because eventually it's going to happen, guys. It's going to freaking happen. You're going to get kicked off of Ethereum. You're no longer going to be able to mine it. You're going to have to move to a different coin. What is everybody going to move to? We just proved in the poll and what we saw in the miner data that we don't have a concrete answer for you. And we don't have a concrete answer because we need long-term data. But Ergo would be a good test to determine, 1, again, network, can it handle it? 2, can the pools handle it? 3, what was the third one? You said something.
Which one? Sorry, I was trying to read chat too. I have ADD. What can I say?
That's all good.
No. So I think because Detroit Iris made a good point. He said we could combine Firo and Flux on a weekend where like AMD equals Firo and we move all of our NVIDIA to Flux, which could potentially work, I think.
I mean, unless we go freaking Equilibra. I mean, Equilibra is one of the most... So these Kryptonite _GPU coins are not looked at, right? Conceal is a privacy-focused coin. A lot of good things. My buddy Savage Mine used to cover it. But a lot of people don't pay attention to that. But the Kryptonite _GPU coins are top 5, top 10 most profitable. But not everybody wants to switch to that. So that's why I believe Sonvatech is saying Ergo.
From my perspective, Ergo has been Ergo is the easiest to move and isn't going to cause significant overclock changes from
Like,
Ethereum and everything. So I just think it's an easy first one to do. Also,
but Faro is the same thing. If we Faro is going to cause higher heat, higher electric output. Some rigs may not like it, just like Ravencoin.
right, Crypto Night GPU coins would be the next one that we could do, though, right? Like an Equilibria or a Rio or whatever, which I think is valid. The thing is like there's not. When I was looking at both of those, Equilibria and Rio, like I know Rio just recently had like a little bit of development, but like a lot of the Kryptonite GPU coins had very little, if any, development over the past like 2 years.
Right, and that's the biggest killer of cryptocurrencies. Yeah, it's profitable to mine, but if you don't see any activity on that particular project, submits, commits.
Plus, we also have to start thinking about which ones are going to be the easiest to liquidate as well. Which ones have the most potential to be hitting exchanges? Obviously, Flux, if you're on NVIDIA, freaking great, because, you know, we're about to have deposits into crypto.com for Flux. Ergo is a decent option because it's already on KuCoin and a few others, and it hopefully gets this bridge set up with Cardano here. I know ErgoDex already has it on the Cardano testnet.
That's what I'm waiting on.
And too, we know that Charles Hoskinson already earlier this week, when all the shit went down with Terra, basically was like, you guys should look at SigUSD. What's SigUSD? That's the algorithmic stable coin on Ergo.
Just a heads up, just to talk about liquidation. Ergo, I think, has like around 20 exchanges or 20 ways, not 20 exchanges, but like, you know, different pairs that you can liquidate with it. Flux has 40. Ravencoin has 73, but then if we start looking at these Kryptonite _GPU, Conceal, Rio, Equilibra, then it becomes even less options for liquidation.
Right, and that's going to be one of the concerns. So I think that does put us in that realm of we're going down the right path of what Ravencoin, you said, has a lot, Ergo has a lot, Flux has a lot. So those are the ones you're looking at for easier liquidation.
Yeah, the reason we're not choosing Ravencoin or the reason Faro and Ravencoin aren't as profound is because, again, the amount of electricity, heat, more core intensive. The easiest to move to would be Ergo.
Yeah, you know what Flux should do? Drop Terra and add Ergo.
Hey,
Ergo has
Flux,
tokenized.
get on it.
Yeah, that's the play. That's the play.
That would be great.
Oh, Jake.
Yep.
Throw some comments in here. What you switched over to Ergo for the 24 hours, right?
Yeah, so I did Ergo. I did 2 miners. So I mean, I didn't have the small pool payout problem, I would say, as much, of course. But yeah, I mean, the heat and power were the biggest pro in the whole experience, compared to ETH currently and compared to other coins, I would say.
And what did you vote for the 72-hour test? Ergo as well?
I voted Ergo for that test as well. Yeah, because I think yesterday, you know, like you were saying, we were all over many different coins. Makes it a little harder to see our impact. Definitely a single coin 72-hour test would definitely make it like we would be able to clearly see what kind of impact we should have on that chain in that coin.
Right.
Because if we just do 4 or 5 different cryptos each test, I mean, we're probably going to just keep getting the same result, more or less.
People want us to talk about Cortex. So Cortex has been around a while. I've covered it before. I have a WTF is on it. They'll give you a brief overview of what it does. As far as like, obviously it's supposed to be AI on the blockchain. Well, okay. I think that personally, I think that Flux has a better chance of getting to AI on the blockchain before Cortex does.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
That's kind of what I see as far as that goes. Now, I could be wrong. What does their roadmap look like? Has anything even updated on Cortex from last year when I covered them?
Not that I'm aware of. I think there was some marketing ploy, but as far as like updates to the ecosystem, let me see.
I don't think I've seen much from their devs.
Their last pin on Reddit was from 3 years ago. So then I guess the next question is with Cortex. Where do you liquidate Cortex right now?
Liquidating Cortex.
So Binance,
Binance,
Bithumb, yeah, Haibu, OKX, MX. So they got like 20 different pairs that you can utilize, but I guess you could say maybe 7 to 10 exchanges overall. Total 24-hour volume is what, 5 million. So
you got Mexi, yeah, you got.
But
20.
the total volume's pretty small.
yeah, compared to some of the other coins, yes.
But you
It's
do
ranked
have
619 on CoinMarketCap.
Which is not terrible, to be honest.
I guess if you have access to Binance, it's not a bad option. I don't know if you could move a ton over there, though, right?
See, what I don't like is this, and you can't see it, but on my screen, when I go to their GitHub, there's, like flatlining. Like there's a couple things they're making updates to, like the Torn FS, Cortex Thesis, but everything else is kind of flatline. There's not a lot of activity on the development side, but it does look like they're making some moves into the AI space. You are utilizing it for some features, but I haven't done a deep dive like you guys have.
So the thesis is, I haven't done a deep dive either. It's just people are asking, so I figured we could poke at it all together, right? Okay. So
they are active on Twitter, at least.
Yeah, I see that on Twitter. Like they followed me on Twitter too.
Yeah, on Twitter they're active at least. I mean, your last post there is what, April 25th?
They have a Docker image for a full node if you want to go run a node. With Cortex, I'd probably put obviously NVIDIA GPUs on there because I know I've already tested that before. And then I would probably build my own node and solo mine it.
So AMD cards, like 6600 XT, it's in the top 10, but it's towards the bottom of the top 10 as far as profitability. So it's really hard to find a coin that everyone can mine that will be, just as profitable or close to as profitable as possible to Ethereum between all the different makes and models that we all have. So there's going to be some sacrificing that, like me, I'll be more than happy to sacrifice my profitability for this test.
And then as far as market cap, the only thing that has $1 trillion market cap is Ethereum Classic. Is that correct?
Is it trillion? You mean billion?
Billion, yeah, sorry.
Trillion, and they overtook Bitcoin.
Overtook Bitcoin. No, so yeah, but the only thing that has but the ASICs are going to go there.
I mean, as long as Ethereum Classic's not going to be the go-to off the bat, but over time we should see price appreciation.
Raven Coin's the next largest.
Might become profitable. But in the short term, Ethereum Classic isn't going to be the most profitable for GPU miners.
Somebody said Caspa. First of all, you guys need to understand that Caspa has no intentions of remaining proof of work for GPUs. They're going to be moving to optical proof of work. That's the entire point. And they're already doing FPGAs. Casper was a spec mine coin. Remember when Vega was talking about what GPU miners do? We support the networks when the networks are early on and they haven't fully vetted out everything, and they eventually move to something else. Heavy hash specifically is for optical proof of work, which is basically using lasers to mine. That's the most basic thing I could explain. Basic way I could explain it, but it's going to be specialized hardware specifically.
So February 11th, Cortex 2.0 is rolling out testnet to test layer 2 expansion ZK Matrix in an effort to scale on-chain transactions, achieve accuracy and privacy of on-chain AI results. So, I mean, but let me, not to spread FUD or anything, I like to support projects that support the miners. Unfortunately, I understand that most of the world is not proof of work. It's over to proof of stake. I just like proof of work. Right, I like the participation. I like the decentralization. Not every coin that is proof of work supports the miners. They utilize the miners, like Son of a Tech said, to kind of vet out everything. And then once they get up to scale, they start making plans on what the next stage is, moving on with their lives, and then the miners are kind of left in the dust. Wasn't there some beef with Cortex in the past? Anybody remember that?
I thought it was the issue of being in China and then having to move to somewhere else. Or was that Conflux? I think that was Conflux. Hold on.
Yeah, I think that was Conflux. I could have swore something happened with Cortex, but no, it's and also isn't Cortex, you need at least a certain amount of memory on your GPU in order to mine it, and not everybody in the GPU ecosystem is going to have that. 6 gig minimum. So that's not something that we can easily switch to.
Well, of course, you still got all the 4 gig cards out there.
Yeah, there's still a lot of people running cards like that. Even 1063 gigs, even though they're not as profitable, they're still mining.
I don't know, man. I think they're moving away, or I think most miners have been moving away from 4 gigabyte for a while, right?
I think a lot of miners too sold their 4 gigs when the prices were high.
Yeah, but now the 9-year-old that bought their 4 gig cards is wanting to participate with us.
And at least the way I've seen it, a lot of those people are buying for gaming too.
But it's still only Cortex that you have to worry about there.
Right.
How much of the hash rate just goes straight to NiceHash too?
Well, NiceHash is going to be a good decent bit because they're going to pick a new algo, right? Or just stick with ETH hash, and then people will be renting it for
Ethereum Classic. Yeah.
But I mean, NiceHash added a couple more coins that you can now like rent hash for, I do believe, too.
Do you know the names of them? So there's Zhash, Cockatoo 31, Cockatoo 32, Neoscript, Octopus, RandomX, Beam, Kaku Cycle.
NiceHash.
Okay.
There's Zelhash on there still, and Autolycos, which is Ergo, Kapal, Ravencoin, ETH Hash. But what is the new coins you were talking about?
Or at least I know they were speaking of.
I'm going to wrap it up here because you're going to be going live on yours anyways in 9 minutes, right? Vega?
No, I went live with you, buddy. We're good.
I thought you were going.
We could go ahead and wrap it up.
I am going to wrap it up because I'm going to go to, there's like a kids meet cops day or whatever. So my son wants to go. So I'm going to go take him to that.
Live on YouTube.
And then you guys continue doing what you all do. I think the plan is right now, wrapping up, we are going to schedule a migration to Ergo. Everybody's going to move to Ergo, all of their cards, AMD and NVIDIA, in 2 weeks from yesterday, which is going to be on May 27th. I will update the Discord with the next event. Feel free to move off of whatever coin you were moving on right now and go back to Ethereum and get that revenue to pay your power bills and your rent and buy some more graphics cards and we will schedule that up for 27th. So the 27th, which will be a Friday, 9:45 a.m. Central, 10:45 a.m. Eastern. And we'll move to Ergo and see what happens. Thanks, everybody, for all the support. Hit the like button, subscribe, comment, notification. Go follow Jake Tech Bytes. Hopefully we can get a link for his in YouTube. And then definitely go follow Vega as well, who's live right now. Let me get his up. Let me link you guys over there. Are you going to stay live, Vega?
Yeah, I'm going to stay live for a few more minutes, wrap it up, final conclusions. But yeah, post that on the Discord and we'll chat in there.
All right, I'm going to link you guys over to Mr. Vega. And you guys can go hit the like there and support another cryptocurrency mining YouTuber. There you go. Yeah. Thanks, guys. I think we learned enough. I think we definitely learned a lot about the ASICs. So hit the like. I'll see you next Tuesday.